bit of an experiment. We'll see what that looks like. But I wanted to record myself while I'm taking notes so you can see what my system looks like. So this is my Roam database, my personal one. And as you can see, this is how I use the daily notes. And I use something called interstitial journaling, where I basically type the current time and what I'm doing right now. And I do this every time I'm in between tasks or if I get distracted, which is a great way to keep track of how I'm spending my time. An example of how I do this is to be like, okay, this is the current time, and I'm starting the recording now. This is also where I record anything that I stumble upon when I'm working, or if I'm on Twitter, or if someone sends me an interesting article over email. I will put it in there with the tag to read, so it goes into my reading inbox. And I do this so I am not getting distracted and I can keep on doing whatever I'm being focused on right now. And I know that this is not lost and I can read it later. So, just to give you an example of how I do that in practice. So this is an article that was sent to me, and I haven't read it yet, but the title and the abstract make it seems that it would probably be interesting to me. So I usually select the introduction or the abstract, or something that gives a good overview of what this is going to be about, and then click this little bookmarklet that I created, which is just a very simple JavaScript bookmarklet, which copies the content to my keyboard and formats it. So I can then go to Roam and just paste this. And so what it does here is that it will take everything that I selected from the article in question and then link to the original piece and add the tag to read. The reason why I have this tag is because then I have my reading inbox here, and I have everything that I've kind of like stumbled upon while doing something else that I want to read later. So let's see which one we can take notes on. It's this one that looks amazing. I've been really curious about it. The reason why I've been kind of like procrastinating on this one is because it's 4,200 words, so that would probably take a little bit of time, but it looks amazing. It's about free will and chaos, like physics, how the universe works, a bit of neuroscience in there from what I gathered from a very quick skim. So I think this is going to be a great one, but probably a little bit too long for the purpose of this video. So let's see if there's something else we can look at that's a little bit shorter. Maybe that's YouTube. Yeah, I tag everything with to read, which is really to consume or to sit down and look at and take notes. What about this one? I love Quanta Magazine. They have amazing articles very often. So I think I saw this one on Twitter. Let's look at the length. Okay, that looks very reasonable. So, okay, let's do this. So the first thing I'm going to do is that for this, and this is where I'm going to be taking my notes. I know lots of people are putting lots of meta information in there, but I don't find it that useful personally. So by meta information, I mean that I could be like, I don't know, something like source, Quanta magazine, and author, whoever he is, could do this. I don't even know why it's doing this weird thing here, but I don't do that. I just go straight into taking notes. So yeah, let's do this. I'm just going to read this and see if I find anything interesting. The reason why I'm really interested in this one is because I'm really interested in the concept of thinking in maps, and they're mentioning Leonardo da Vinci already, which is I did write about his work very recently in my Thinking in Maps article, so I feel like that would be relevant. Okay, so first here, for example, that's very interesting because that's something lots of writers do. As of yet, there's not been a proposed strategy for handling the Riemann hypothesis that's even semi-plausible. And I'm like, but what is this thing? So that will go in my open questions. And you'll notice that I'm not looking it up right now. I'll do it in a minute when I'm done reading. Okay. It's the same here. I'm like, what is this? I'm I like this. This is very interesting. I still don't know, you'll notice, what the problem was, but the way he solved it is very interesting, I think. So whatever happens in my notes here, I'm gonna keep that bit because combining existing information to find a novel solution is something that I've always been fascinated with. This is a very interesting question here. How do you know if a problem is impossible to solve or just really hard? So that's going to go in my own open questions. How do you know if a problem is possible to solve? Pretty hard. Yeah. So yeah, similarity, for example, is interesting. If you can find a problem that's similar enough to the one you're trying to solve right now, there may be something to learn from it. I like this, the remote archipelago. This is sometimes solutions just hard to reach the distance between our existing ideas. too big. Do we cross that distance? This is interesting. This is the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's basically how very often we don't know what we don't know. But here it is saying that sometimes mathematicians have learned enough actually to know what they don't know. There's a little bit more information about that. So that may help us have a look in a minute when you want to get more information about this. Oh, this is amazing. I love this. I very rarely keep full quotes like this, but I think this one is going to make it because it's incredibly interesting. This bit in particular, I think. The challenge is more than coming up with a better boat, it's coming up with a better map. This is also really interesting about not having the right techniques or not having the right conceptual framework. Very common to think that we're lacking the right tools. Tools are good enough to come up with a solution when really we're just not approaching the problem in a way that will help us find a solution in the first place. Just taking it the wrong way, basically. This is fascinating, so interesting. But I won't add it to my notes because it's way too far removed from what I work on or what I could ever hope or expect to spend a lot of time trying to figure out. But I do find it really interesting. And I think part of reading articles is also the in the moment enjoyment of reading those little nuggets. Not absolutely everything needs to go into your note taking app if you're not going to revisit it later. But it's nice to pause and just appreciate those little nuggets of knowledge that someone has taken the time to write down. I also find this really interesting. Working on neuroscience myself, I don't know. There's nothing that I really feel like we wouldn't be able to solve in the future. The only exception is obviously the hard problem of consciousness, where it just gets really meta. Basically, trying to think about how can we think about thinking and how can we be conscious of our consciousness and how can we understand it without taking ourselves out of the equation, which is not possible. So that's in neuroscience. That's definitely something that I often think about in terms of are we ever going to be able to solve for this or to fully truly understand how our consciousness works and what exactly it is. But I always find it really interesting when I see that other areas of science are facing similar challenges where they're not sure if they're ever going to be able to solve for questions that they have. So I don't know, I love seeing that mathematicians are also asking themselves these questions. This is also a very interesting approach of basically taking it the other way and looking at, instead of finding new problems, trying to figure out what kind of problems can we actually solve using the tools and techniques that we already have, which is great. Feels like maybe less shiny than some of the crazy areas of innovations that we've been having lately, but that kind of incremental progress is also really important. This is such a good way to spend a Friday afternoon. I often spend Friday afternoons just thinking about trying to directly attack some famous problem. I just love that. I love this idea. Okay, that was a great read. It did have quite a few concepts that I'm absolutely not familiar with, but after reading the article, this is basically what I have. And so those are really raw notes, open questions that I had while I was reading and things that I thought were interesting. So, okay, let's go through the open questions very quickly. I'm just going to go in Google and type these and see what Wikipedia thinks about that. Um, okay, so two things here. Uh, First, I don't understand this. This is completely out of my area of expertise. And second, I see that many consider it to be the most important unsolved problem in pure mathematics, which makes it super interesting to me. So, what I would probably do, um, and that I'm not going to do here for this video because it would be weird, but I would probably watch a few videos on YouTube because I think that they usually do a great job at explaining more complex concepts like this in layman terms that I can understand even though I don't have a background in mathematics. So this is probably what I would be doing here, and um, and I would then create uh, a page for this so I can take notes what I'm learning about it. But I'm going to skip that part for this. And same for the conjecture. I don't think it would be very interesting for you to watch me learn about it, but this is what I would be doing also. And then I have more open questions that are more things that I think about while reading the article. And these are not really things that I wonder about because I'm lacking pure information, as is the case with these mathematical concepts. These are more things I want to think about. So, I love the concept of a remote archipelago. So, this is probably something that I will want to write about in the future. So, right now, I'm just going to uh, put it as a to write idea, because I think, yeah, I think there's something to do here. And what about these? Yeah, these are all about interconnectedness. And yeah, there's actually this article I've been meaning to write. So I'm just going to add these both to it here. Yeah, so it's like this article I've been thinking about writing has other stuff from other articles. The reason I'm doing this is that when I'm actually ready to write this, I can just scroll here and see all of the times where my notes are referring to this, which is very practical. So yeah, that's how I'm taking notes. I'm just going to, before I close this, I'm going to um, basically just write to process, because these are basically raw notes. There's very little original thinking behind them. So next time I have time to sit down, I will actually go through these and write everything in my own words. But I wanted to show you my raw taking note process, which is the very first step in my kind of like creativity workflow. So yeah, I think that's it. Oh, one thing obviously that going to become a source note for me. So I'm just going to put the link to it in there so I can access it later. And that's it. I can basically close this. This has all of my raw notes, the important bits. I can go back to it later, add more thinking. I got a new idea for an article here. I got two more bits added to an idea for an article that I already had. And oh yeah, I usually do this at the very beginning, but I got distracted because I'm recording this. But I'm just going to change here this from to read to read, so it doesn't show up anymore in my reading inbox. That's it. That's how I go about it. I hope that was helpful.